Hey everybody, Fradum here, and this is Linux Tip episode 19. This is going to be a top 9 list. I know not a top 10, most people do top 10, but I ran out of ideas to add for the 10th item, and the 10th item is actually going to be an honorable mention, because it really doesn't fit the subject matter as much as I thought it would. So my top 9 most used Linux desktop apps, and this is what I use nearly day to day in my Linux environment. Being 100% Linux, no Windows systems in my house, it's kind of important to have replacements for everything that you'd normally use in the Windows world. So, let's get going. Number 1 item is Chrome or Chromium. That's the browser I prefer to use. Everybody needs a browser, so I use Chrome. I like it. Occasionally I'll use Firefox if I'm working on something that is web-based and I need to make sure it looks the same across 2 different browsers. I've tried other browsers out there, but I always just find myself going back to Chrome or Chromium. On some systems, like my laptop, I just leave Chromium installed, and my son's computer runs Chromium. So it's just easier to just keep Chromium on them and not deal with updates on 2 browsers, since Chromium tends to come pre-installed on most systems. So that's number 1. Number 2 is my favorite text editor, and I've mentioned this in other videos. As a matter of fact, you're going to see my notes for this video when I pull it up. Is Kate. Kate is it's borderline IDE. It has a lot of features in it that I really like to use in a text editor, and tabbing for one. It lets you increase your font size, and it doesn't affect the text file. It has filters and tools. You can set up highlighting based on different scripting languages or whatever. So I switched to Kate back when I switched to KDE. It tends to be the default editor in KDE, but I also have some systems that are running Mate and Cinnamon, and I always install Kate. So if you install Kate, just be aware that you will be installing some KDE libraries to support it. So there is some baggage that comes with it. So number 3 is what I'm using right now, and it's going to look a little weird when I move it to the screen, but OBS, Open Broadcast Software. And this is the software I use every time I make a video to capture my webcam video. I don't use it for audio. That's going to be next, or on the list. Actually, it's not on my list. So Audacity would fit. So there's number 10. Audacity is something I use with it too. This is what I use for audio, is Audacity, and you can see right now I'm recording in Audacity the audio for this video. So number 4, KDN Live. That is my video editor, and I use this every time I make a video, so almost daily. And this gives me an environment where I can open up and edit my videos that I make. This is the video I updated earlier this week, my first view of World of Warcraft Legions. So this editor is actually pretty darn good. A lot of people say it's not as good as Adobe Premiere, but I've seen comparison videos. HexDSL is a YouTuber that did a comparison videos, and there's not much in Premiere that you can't do in Kdenlive. So there may be a couple extra steps. The interface is a lot easier to get used to, in my opinion. I find Adobe products to tend to overcomplicated at times and have way too many features to remember to use them all, where this just works. And I know a lot of people have crashing issues with it, but when I switched to Antergos Linux, that got me so that I'm on the most current tree of Kdenlive, and that's kept it pretty stable. So that's a really nice feature. Now the next thing I use is called Shutter. This is number 5. Shutter is a screen capture program that I've been using since the early days of GNOME. There's another one for Linux that people use, and it's called Spectacle, but I found that when Spectacle grays out my screen for the capture to let me know I'm in capture mode, I can't find my cursor, my mouse pointer, because I do select, I don't do full screen captures, where this program does not do that. I can hit this, it grays out, but I can at least see my my mouse cursor, and that's important when you're trying to, you know, select something. It also supports tabs, so I can look at multiple captures and compare them, and then I can save them in any format, which is typically PNG. Number 6. Number 6 is the IDE I use for when I'm doing programming, and I use CodeBlocks. This program, it doesn't seem to be as popular as some of the ones that are out there, but this is the first one I started using when I was taking computer science courses. This is an old program that I had to write back in the CS10 days, and I just really like the interface, and I'm familiar with it, and I'm familiar with its little kinks and quirks. So CodeBlocks, it has plugins for C, C++, and I think Python, but I haven't verified that. But it's mostly for C and C++. And so if you do any C, C++ programming, this is a good program to use. There is another thing out there. Well, the nice thing about this is a complete IDE, so it'll compile and everything. So if I can hit run, and there's output of my program. So there's one I learned about today that I saw a video by EG that I'm going to give an honorable mention. It's a Microsoft product, Visual Studio Code. And this is an editor, but I haven't figured out yet how to compile in it. So I can open a file, load in some C++. It gives me some information, but this is supposed to have the full Visual Studio's IntelliSense. So this is something I'm going to actually start playing around with and see if I like it. When I get back into taking classes on coding, this would be more compatible with what they teach in class. They teach Visual Studios in class, so it might be worth looking into. So that's why I wanted to give that one an honorable mention. Now, number 7 is I do graphics editing, like when I make my thumbnails, and sometimes when I get an image for my videos, they're too big to be a thumbnail, so I just use this for pretty much any graphic editing, and it's the GIMP. And GIMP is Graphical Image Manipulator Program. This is probably one of the oldest image editors for Linux. It's been out for such a long time, and so here's the screen capture I did earlier, and I don't know how it compares to Photoshop because I have not used Photoshop in so many years and it's changed so much. But I'll tell you, everything I need to do in my day-to-day life that is image related, GIMP works perfectly. I know that there might be features that some of the professionals use that might be missing, but you know, for the average user, it works great. Number 8 is KeePass. KeePass X2. I use this, and I'm going to type my super secret code. I'm not going to show you. Oops, typed wrong. I don't think, yeah, it won't show passwords. So I keep my work password file in here, and my private one here. I'll probably blur those out just so that you guys won't have that information. Sorry, but it is security. KeePass uses a military-grade encryption, I believe, to encrypt all the data for this based on the key phrase that I just entered. And I save my data file on a cloud drive so that I can access it from home or work. Because at times I have to log into things from work, and I don't memorize all the passwords. Same with home, I don't memorize all my passwords. So KeePass is definitely a must-have app. I used to use a flat file encrypted with TrueCrypt, and then after the big scandal with TrueCrypt happened, where they quit making it and they warned you never to use it, I switched to a command line encryption program that was compatible with TrueCrypt encryptions, and I've been using that for a couple years. But KeePass is something I just started using this year, and I'm pretty happy with it. And it's pretty standard. If you create a KeePass database with the encryption, I think there's a program for Windows if you need it, so that you can read those encrypted files. And there's also one for mobile devices. So the database, as long as you know your passphrase, is accessible across all platforms, including mobile, and that's what kind of makes it nice. Now, last but not least is number 9, and this is I don't know, this is just something I use every day, constantly, and I used to use a different version, and then when I switched to KDE, this had become my favorite, and it's Consul. This is your terminal, and I use Consul a lot because I do a lot of command line stuff. I think most of the stuff I do in Linux is command line, with the few exceptions of stuff that require GUI, like video capture, audio capture, and all that the stuff we just covered. I used to just use plain Xterm or GNOME terminal when I was in the GNOME environment. I used to use just whatever was the default, and I used to hate Consul and KDE. It just never seemed to work right in the past, but it seems like with Plasma 5, KDE 5, Consul works really well. It's now my favorite terminal program, and I use it everywhere. I'll even install it on my Cinnamon and GNOME installs and grab the extra KDE libraries to support it, just because I'm familiar with this environment and it's what I like. So now for honorable mentions, we already mentioned a couple, but I do want to tell you that I use Google Drive for all my desktop editing, for spreadsheets, word processor, email. I prefer Google Drive over some of the other applications that are out there, and I don't even install LibreOffice anymore because I just found I never used it. This keeps my documents. I'm using my secondary account, but this keeps my documents in a nice cloud environment that I can access anywhere. I don't put anything that's super secret. I just basically keep plain documents, images. I have my cell phone set up to automatically upload any phone pictures I take to my Google Drive. So I use this. This probably gets used a lot more than I give it credit for. And it's a great product, and it's free if you have a Gmail account. And you can basically create word process documents, spreadsheets, Google Slides, which is like PowerPoint. I've used that before. I've never used these other things like forums, drawings, and maps. I've never really had a use for them, but it's nice to know they're there. But I do use the spreadsheets a lot for work stuff. I keep a lot of data in there, and I track it that way, and it's easy to export the data out so that if I need to share it with someone in a different environment, I can. So Google Apps through Gmail is wonderful. If you have a domain of your own, which I have, fratum.com, you can actually get a much better deal if you want to pay for it. Get a lot more space. I think I have 150 gigabytes, and I pay, not much, less than I was paying for the equivalent on Dropbox. I quit paying for Dropbox. I switched to the free Dropbox because all I use it for is to pass files back and forth when I need to get a file from home to work really easy. So Dropbox is really low on my usage list, even though it's there. But for 100 gigs on Dropbox, I think I was paying $100 a year. I think through Google it's way less. It's like $50 or $40 a year for 100 gigs, and I have 150 because since I have a domain, it came with 50. So that's my top list of applications that I use on Linux, and I hope you found this useful. And as a new user, this might give you an idea of some of the stuff that is available for you. Oh, and Steam. By the way, Steam works great on Linux. I'll launch that. I have 2 versions of Steam installed. I have Steam for Linux, which is this one, and Steam running in Wine for the occasional Windows game that won't. So here's Steam library, and if you go to, I have 106 Linux games out of 129 total, so you can tell how many Windows games I actually do run. Not too many. And actually I haven't run Steam for Windows in probably over a year. So Steam is always running, so if you're on Steam, you can friend me if you want. My screen name is Fratum, of course. Anyway, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a great day, and I hope you had a great weekend. And take care. Bye-bye.